Gonna be a long, cold walk back to the truck tonight. Dang it.
This week, we're headed out to Big Sky Country, Montana. One of my favorite hunts of the year. I get to hunt with my dad and my brothers. I got one of them here tonight, my brother Kevin.
That's right, we had a lot of really good hunts over the years in Montana, and this one was no different, except we had a little more snow than we would have liked.
The weather out there this year was unbelievable. It's typically this time of year when we go out, we get lows in the teens and highs in the 40s, 50s. This year, we never saw anything above 20 degrees. Temps were in the negative degrees when we were out there. We had snow like you wouldn't believe. There was several days where we couldn't even see where we were driving. We actually had to stop on the road because of the snow, because of the cold. It's, you name it, we had it out there. Except if you were talking about favorable hunting conditions. We just didn't have them.
No, we had none. High winds, visibility next to nothing, almost the entire trip, but we made the most of it and we came out of it with some pretty dang good memories.
Well, day one, Montana gun season 2022. And as you can tell by the way I'm dressed, it is cold. Cold, snowy, and now it's foggy. But my brother Greg, day one, he just put a buck down. It's only a mile and a half away, which typically out here we'd be like, oh, that's a cakewalk. Thankfully, it's only a mile and a half away. With all the snow we've got, the boys are dead just from walking out there and walking back. They did a little stalk on a deer and Greg put it down. They're dead, but we still have 3 miles of walking through that stuff and carry a deer back to go. But we're gonna get to it. Greg's excited. He's done tagged out for Montana 22, and my dad is actually gonna stay at the truck because we don't want to bring another load back. We already talked about the Oregon Trail and maybe just putting up a cross for him if he does kick it and continue on our journey. So he's gonna stay here. We're gonna go get a deer. Let's see what this adventure brings. When we got out there, day one, my brother Greg got it done. We didn't have it on film because we were actually just going out on a scouting trip on day one. And Greg, well, he wasn't about the filming, he was about the shooting. And he got it done. We were happy for him. We took a 2-mile hike in to get his deer out, and those guys had already come out from that. They were almost dead, and we had to go back in, retrieve the deer, and come back out. So here we go. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You can see we can't see a thing out here. My brother Greg put a nice buck down. We've got a mile and a half to go in to get it, and a mile and a half to come out with it. So it's gonna be a heck of an adventure. The boys already came back from that spot. They're tired. Rough, rough. So, a long mile, Greg says. Montana is not a place you wanna go for an easy hunt. It's always a tough hunt, but that's what makes it a hunt. It's always a challenge, and we love it out there.
Absolutely. You're not doing a lot of deer dragging out there. You're packing. I mean, you're completely geared up to carry that thing out on your backpack, you know, in quarters. And I mean, it's the closest thing to an elk hunt that, you know, you could experience in the mule deer or whitetail world.
So when we go out there on these hunts, We actually typically carry a pack in with us so that if you are able to harvest a deer, you don't have to go all the way back to the truck and get your pack and go all the way back out to retrieve the animal. So on this trip, it ended up being a little quick on the harvest with my brother Greg and Kevin, so they didn't have all their gear with, but they made the trip out. I made the trek back in with them. It's gonna be a little over a mile from here in and out. It is so foggy, we can't even see where we're going. So we're gonna leave Dad on point here, and he's gonna man the trucks just in case anything comes along, because it's gonna be a long walk, and like we talked about, if it keels over, it's gonna be like the Oregon Trail, and we're just gonna put up a cross and keep on our venture. So we're gonna continue on, and let's see what's at the end here. We just crossed your path. I
know, that's what I was saying. I think we're
like,
right,
but we did a plus across it.
I know.
On the way out to pack this deer out, we crossed path of other human tracks. Well, I knew these two were the only ones that had gone through the area, and had to question them about it. And Kevin's response was,
well, we were following Greg's GPS. And after a while, I thought, there's no sun, but my inner compass is telling me we're kind of going in circles a little bit here. So we got geared up and turned back around the right way towards the trucks. But we finally used the GPS, led us right to the deer. Again, it was less than favorable conditions out. Some of your own tracks were blown shut instantly. So it was amazing that we were even able to see any tracks at all, but we got there.
it was a cool discovery when we got up over the top and saw the deer laying there, and Greg was happier than heck. Here we are, day one, Montana, gun season 2022. This is my brother Greg. He's already dumped one. It's insanely cold out here, windy, and we've got about 8 inches of snow for the most part. Gets to like 12 inches or more where if you're stepping in the deeper stuff. But Greg, this is your second mule deer, right? Second time out mule deer hunting. You shot this this nice 3x4. And we got a long ways to go to load this up, but it'll be fun getting this out of here. What do you think, Greg?
I'm really happy with this buck, Ron. I'm
right.
happy to have my brothers with me to help me pull this thing back to the truck.
Well, congratulations, and my brother Kevin's with. We're gonna go get him a deer next. We got my dad waiting at the truck for us, and we still got 3 deer to get, but we got all week to do it, so we're gonna keep after it. The conditions are gonna get really bad. It's gonna get really windy and super cold, but there's no quitting us. We're gonna keep it up. So we jokingly told my dad, as you saw, that he should probably stay at the truck and man the truck. He would more than likely kick our butts up and down the mountains of anywhere we're hunting out west. He's more in shape than any of us, I swear, and never shows it. I sometimes tell him, "Hey, Dad, you want to take a break?" And when we're hiking the mountains, and he's like, "No, I'm fine." I'm like, "No, let's take a break because I'm shot." So he's always we joke around about him staying at the truck or whatever, but he'd be the first one with us always to pack a deer out. But long story short, we left him at the truck for an easy first day hunt, and he had a few days to go after that to put some miles on. So
yeah, he did, and Dad was quite the warrior out there. Even though conditions were less than favorable, he still made every effort he could to get down in there in some of those draws. It was a little tough for anyone.
He never complains about a thing. Us boys, on the other hand, we complain about everything, or especially my brothers complain about everything. My dad never says a word about anything. If he's hurting, you're not gonna know about it. So ever since I was a young kid, my dad took me out. I was not the easiest kid to take out in the woods. I couldn't sit still very long. He always did it. My brothers coming up were the same way. We all had that little bit of jitteriness where if you sat for an hour, that was about all you could do. He took us with every time, no questions asked. And so when you get into your older years and you can have that experience still with your dad, it goes beyond appreciation for having your dad in your life yet. We just absolutely love going out. We all give each other grief on these hunts, but just I don't care if my dad's 100 years old, we're still gonna take him with. He's still gonna give us grief, we're still gonna give him grief, and that goes big into the memories of the hunt.
Absolutely, and if you think back on taking 4 young boys at one time out hunting, that would be frustrating for any parent, but we had a lot of sibling rivalry going, and tensions could get high. There's a lot of competition in the family, and sometimes that would stir things up a bit, but it made for a lot of really great memories and still does. Greg was done on day 1. He had his buck, so I sent him off with our dad to try to help him get a buck. I went out with Kevin. I was behind the camera, Kevin was behind the gun. Day 2 started out, we couldn't see the front end of the truck. And that was 2 days in a row that happened. It was so wind blowing, so snow blowing, you couldn't see a thing. And we actually had to stop on the road several times to just because we couldn't see anything anymore. And like I said, that continued for 2 days. We did all we could. We're used to seeing a lot of deer out in Montana. They had a die-off last year with a couple different diseases, along with a long winter the year before, and we didn't have the deer that we're used to out there. So things were slim pickings, but we got out there, we tried hard. After all this driving around in the truck, trying to get on a good deer before you put it on your legs, we finally found a group of deer on land that we can hunt, because it's been tough to find deer on land that we can hunt. The deer are herded up right now. They're on a lot of private land that we don't have permission to hunt, but we finally find a group that has one shooter in it. Well, it's the last day in Montana for us. To say conditions have been extreme would be a major understatement. We've had nothing but freezing cold temps, blowing snow, major winds, and it's just been really cold and miserable. I haven't even taken my gun out of the case yet. We've worked really hard trying to get my dad a deer. We're working to try to get Kevin a deer today. This is our last chance. The deer are herded up, and they're in places, a lot of places we can't get to, even private land that is leased by outfitters and stuff like that. It just congregates the deer a lot during these conditions, and from what we've found so far on this hunt is most of them are on places we can't get to or don't have permission to hunt. So we did just find a group of about 30 deer, and there's 2 nice bucks in that, 2 nice mule deer. And Kevin's gonna be on the gun here. We got about a 2-mile sneak to get back to them. The way the conditions are, they could be a mile from us by the time we get back there, from where they were at. It's just, you never know, they're on the move when it's this cold. The winds are actually, they're only about 10 to 15 miles an hour right now, which is the least it's been all week. So that's kind of got the deer moving a little bit more. So we're gonna head back there and give it a shot at there. It's possibly the last chance we've got of the season out here in Montana. So we'll head back, give it a shot, and see what happens. Well, after finding that buck, we knew we had 2 choices. We could take the easy way and more than likely get busted, or we could take the long way, and it was not something we were looking forward to.
That herd of deer was about a mile from the road that we glassed them from, but to get into those deer was about 2 miles in, and not an easy way to get into it. It was through a lot of deep snow and through a lot of sand hills.
Sand hills with a lot of snow at the bottom, deeper than Ron and I are tall. We were kind of hoping several times that we were just going to end up to our neck in it.
The trek in was not easy. My batteries on the camera even were fading fast. It was so cold out there, and not having gloves on so I could film, my fingers were frozen. We were frozen just from the walk itself, but not having anything on your fingers was really tough. Kevin didn't have anything on his fingers once he was on the gun, and his fingers were frozen. But we kept after it. We got up to our first vantage point, and there's a doe and a fawn below us, and we couldn't go any further. We sat there for over a half an hour to try to let those two pass, and they just wouldn't leave the area. Instead of walking past us, they walked further away from us towards the other herd of deer.
So we've been sitting on the side hill, waiting for a doe and a fawn to get out of our way so we can continue. They're finally feeding off now, and we are frozen. We got about 500 yards to the deer yet, so if we can make it up 3 more draws, we should be within range for the camera and hopefully for the gun as well. We'll see how the shot is. But looks like we might finally be able to continue on here. So
That 30 minutes seemed like an eternity. The wind was hitting us, we were up on top, did not feel good. You went from sweating to now you're sitting and freezing. Misery is starting to sink in. But we had a lot going for us because we were on the trail of the buck we were after.
Finally, that doe and fawn make their way towards the other herd of deer, and we got to sneak a few more draws up over the top and closer to the target buck. And while we're doing that, we discover that there's more deer in between us than the herd of deer that we were trying to get to. And luckily, those deer were actually looking at another group of deer that was even further away from us. So we got to sneak down a little bit. I gave Kevin the green light to sneak down. He made his way down, and we got it all on camera.
Well, after Ron gave me the green light, he stayed back behind the camera, and I made my way down across the side hill to where I felt comfortable. I told Ron I wanted to be within 300 yards for sure. That was a lot of wind. I wasn't super comfortable shooting really long range, not knowing exactly what that bullet's gonna do, but we were gonna find out shortly.
It took Kevin a while to sneak down on the target buck, and I was looking at the camera and I was running out of battery. I had a choice to either take the battery out and switch at that point or let it run. And I looked down and thought, it's gonna happen here shortly. So I left that battery in, and it was at 8%, 7%, 6%, and Kevin hadn't shot yet. I was getting pretty nervous.
Well, lo and behold, that buck decided right at that moment he was gonna get up. After being bedded down for several minutes, he finally gave me a shot. I had my gun dead center on him, pulled the trigger, and not what I typically see when I let the Browning go. Well, after the shots, I was pretty confused and frustrated, to say the least. Surprised I was, and so was Ron. That's not a shot that I would normally miss under any circumstances. But after that 2-mile trek out there, talk about heartache. We've all been there, but it doesn't make it any easier. We went down and looked, as any ethical hunters should do, just to verify what we already knew. 3 swings and misses.
It's gonna be a long, cold walk back to the truck tonight. Dang it.
We did a little more investigating, and unfortunately, I pulled one of the biggest bonehead moves of my hunting career. The day before, I was marching all day in the snow with my gun in my rifle pack, not noticing that my windage turrets had turned almost a full rotation, which meant that I would be shooting several feet to the right of the deer, which is exactly where all 3 shots went.
After that was all said and done, we made the long trek back to the truck. Kevin was obviously frustrated, and me being the older brother, never let off on the grief, but it made for a lot warmer trek back to the truck.
Well, warmer for one of us, at least.
We left Montana with just my brother Greg getting an animal. I actually never took my gun out of a case the entire trip. That's how bad the hunt was. And with the 4 of us, we've only had one other time where we didn't fill our tags out there. And
In 10 years.
in 10 years. And that just goes to show it how tough the conditions were out there, how low the deer population is now out there. It got decimated with, like we were talking, it got decimated with the diseases that were out there with the long winter from the year before, and it just wasn't meant to be for us on this trip. But we'll be back out to Montana. It's still one of the most beautiful states to hunt, and we're gonna be back there to enjoy that in the future for sure.
Well, we left Montana eating tag soup, not what we preferred. Disappointing, absolutely. But redemption was just on the horizon. We've got a late season tag left in North Dakota, and this is not one that you're gonna wanna miss.
This is a hunt that we always look forward to if we've got a tag left at the end of the year, because there's not many people that do what we do in the late season, in the snow, in the cold. Next week's episode, we're out in North Dakota for a late season hunt. Kevin's up to bat. You're not gonna wanna miss this one. Shooting deer out of an igloo. I'm Ron Mehr with Outdoors America. For my brother Kevin, thanks for watching.